Welcome to Beyond My Comic Shop. I am your host, Anthony Desiato. Beyond My Comic Shop is a subseries of My Comic Shop history, featuring stories in and around the comic book world. This subseries was previously known as Flat Squirrel Tales, but following a crisis of infinite podcasts, all of my shows now live under the My Comic Shop History podcast feed. This installment originally aired as an episode of Flat Squirrel Tales last season. It features comic book artist V Ken Marion, whose work you've seen in DC's Trinity, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, and more. We geeked out pretty hard about comics, Justice League, and Smallville, and we also talked about breaking into and navigating the comics industry. My Comic Shop History, Beyond My Comic Shop, and My Comic Shop Book Club will all return with new episodes later in 2018. For now, enjoy this presentation of Creator Chat with V Ken Marion. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, of course, of course.
So I was surprised to learn that V, the letter V, no period, just the letter V, is your actual first name.
Yes, yeah.
Because I was unsure about that. I didn't know if it was an initial, but that is actually your first name.
Yeah. It's my grandpa's name was Vincent, when he was a kid, his nickname was V. So my dad thought it would be cool to name me V. And my middle name is Ken, so yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I came across that as I was preparing for today. I'm like, oh, right on. It's funny though, because when you say V Ken Marion, if you're not listening closely, it kind of sounds like the Ken Marion.
Yeah, that when I was in college, someone that came up when I was in college once, and they're like, why does everyone refer to you as the Ken? I'm like, no, that's not. It's V. Yeah.
So, I think we'll have a really fun conversation here today. I could ask you, how did you get into comics? What was your process like? But I think we could have a little bit more fun than that. Though I do want to touch on those things totally. Well. But, first and foremost, I want to thank you. You helped out big time with the My Comic Shop Country Kickstarter campaign, contributing a sketch as a reward. Like, that was huge. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I'm hoping to get it done sometime around Christmas, maybe. I don't know. I got some deadlines coming up and some covers I have to do. But, yeah, no, I'm definitely going to do a pretty sweet Wonder Woman for it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, but that was honestly, that was so huge to have that as part of the campaign. I mean, these rewards are such a big part of it. So that was, really, I really appreciate that.
No, of course. I'm super happy that it got funded, and because I'm really excited to see it. So yeah, and I've been loving your show. So yeah, it's definitely been keeping me company on some of those deadlines, like listening to all your episodes. So
listen, and I don't say this for a fact. Like I'm honored. The fact that you are creating comics while listening to these shows is really cool. And, speaking of the reward, so not only did you contribute a reward, which was more than enough to begin with, but you also pledged a photo shoot reward.
Yeah.
For you and your fiance.
Yeah, for our engagement photos. Yeah. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is perfect. So yeah.
So that's exciting. So my wife Stephanie, she'll be taking the photos, and that's gonna be fun.
I'm so excited about that. I'm sure that's exactly what her and Laura are talking about right now.
Probably. Yeah. Yes, the ladies are off elsewhere while we are doing these recordings. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I say recordings because we also recorded an episode of My Comic Shop Book Club. We talked about Doomsday Clock #1. That was fun.
Yeah, so super fun. So
we finally met in person at New York Comic Con back in October. Mm-hmm. How was that experience for you?
It was good.
Not meeting me, but the convention.
Yeah. Oh, meeting you was the highlight of it. It was good. It was that. So I had a crazy deadline right before it, and then I had the show, and then I had another crazy deadline come right after that. So that was like, you met me like mid-exhaustion point. Like, yeah, so it was just like last 3 months were just working like nonstop. So it was a nice break, but it was definitely probably the most tired I've ever been at a show. Was that New York Comic Con, one that just passed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can imagine. I know you've been busy. Actually, when I was at Comics picking up Doomsday Clock #1, I also grabbed 3 of your recent Trinity issues.
Oh, thank you.
Which I had a chance to read, and I really enjoyed the Dark Trinity storyline.
Thank you.
He didn't have the final issue, but that's coming, so I'm going to have that soon. But I really enjoyed what I read so far. And, speaking of the convention of it all, so I announced this in the My Comic Shop History season finale. Next season of My Comic Shop History, the theme for season 4 is going to be My Comic Con History.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to do a season on convention. So I will definitely want to talk to you again more about your convention experience, because I think it's such an interesting aspect of this industry. And as I go to more shows, not like I've been to a ton, but as I go to more shows, like it's just, there's so much going on, so many players, so many different pieces. So that's what the next season of the other podcast is going to be about.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. Like, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing everyone else's takes on it.
Yeah. And you had our mutual friend, Tom Darby, at the table with you.
Yeah, Tom's awesome. He's become like a really, really good friend. So it was awesome. He always comes to the cons and he helps out like crazy. Like almost to the point where like I don't think I could do New York without him helping me out.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he will love to hear that.
Yeah, no, he's such a cool guy. So
yeah. So how did you meet Tom?
I think he might have gotten into this on that collecting episode he did. He came. I think he came to, I want to say it was 2013 New York Comic. It was the first time I ever did New York Comic Con. He came up and just asked for a commission. And he actually emailed me beforehand, like a couple days beforehand to get a commission. And then he came back, like, he came the first day, picked it up, and we just started talking for a little bit. And then I think he came back for another commission and a page from one of my old issues, I want to say. They didn't have with me, like I had to bring it from home. And then like he just kind of like just hung around and was talking like for the show, you know, and we were like, yeah. And no one knew who I was. So no one else is really coming to my table. So I was basically just like talking to him for like a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours at that one show. And then he set up another home commission that over like the next couple months. And I got it done and and I said, how do you want me to mail this out? And he's like, well, I live near here. And I'm like, oh, cool. So let's just like meet at Midtown. And so can save on shipping and everything. I gotta go pick up comics anyways. Like let's just meet there. And we were just like hanging out, like we were just like shooting the shit and like talking about the comics and everything. And yeah, he just like became friends. And then he came to the next con I did was special edition. And I think he was hanging out and I said, hey dude, tomorrow I'll bring a folding chair. You can just come and like hang out. And yeah, and then we just became really good friends. And yeah, we hang out all the time now. Like he's a super cool dude. Like it was like awesome. Yeah. Nice.
No, it's very cool. Yeah. I mean, I've known him for years, you know, through alternate realities. And, you know, I remember we started talking about, you know, hanging out with you and everything. So, no, that's really cool. Did he tell you, well, you must have known what his original plan for this year's New York Comic Con was, right?
When he was going to go to Vegas?
For one day?
Yeah. When he told me that, I was like, huh? And I remember he told me, and then like when his plans fell through, I think I didn't tell Laura at first, and then until it was all over, and I'm like, oh yeah, Tom was like gonna not be here one day and gonna go to Vegas, and she's like, wait, what? Like she couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom has gotten really into MMA.
Yeah.
Right? And he was gonna fly to Vegas to watch a fight and come back the same day.
Yeah.
In the middle of Comic-Con weekend.
Yeah, I feel bad for him because all that fell through, but he would have been exhausted. I can't imagine being like up that long.
You know what though? I have to say, and I hope and assume he'll be listening to this. If there's anyone who could do it, I could see Tom doing it.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
You know, when he's really laser focused on something, like I could see him doing that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I said, like selfishly, I'm like happy he didn't, because I seriously like I don't think I could do New York Comic Con without him helping.
So when you have someone helping you, Tom in this case, I mean, what is it that he's doing that's making your life easier?
Well, him and Laura now, since the last few years since we've been dating, she's been helping out as well at the tables. But it's like helping like get the posters, help like we talk to customers like when I'm sketching, because like a lot of it is like I'm doing commissions, so it's hard to give people the amount of attention when you're behind the table and also get the stuff done at the same time. Like you kind of have to do one or the other. And then when you've got people there, they can help talk to people who are at the table or help engage conversation, or just the simply of like getting posters out when people want to buy posters, and then just like literally putting them in front of me so I can just sign them while I keep drawing, you know. And then there's also if you have to go to the bathroom, like because I've gone to these shows where like I fly out and you know it's just me, like it's not Laura's not coming with me, so I'm like behind the table. And I was just at a show where I think I didn't go to the bathroom for like I want to say like 9 hours or something. Like it was awful.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, and especially in New York when with the amount of time it takes to maneuver, like you kind of need someone there at the table. So
it's true. I mean, so actually right over your shoulder, there's a whole pile of equipment that I got to shoot the My Comic Shop Country documentary, and I got it at B&H in the city recently, and my wife came with me, and I wouldn't have been able to manage otherwise. And even with her, like we really needed a third person almost. Like there's a lot of stuff, and they have quite the operation there, and they kind of I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah,
to be an
yeah,
age.
yeah.
So you're familiar with the process where like you're not actually like carrying stuff with you through the store, but they
It
give
goes
you
on
a
the
ticket.
conveyor belt.
Yeah. So like you tell them what you want and they give you a ticket. And then if you go to another department, they print out a new ticket with the new item, which is very wasteful. Like, not like I'm such an environmentalist, but it just seems very wasteful to me that they keep, like, they'll take your old ticket, rip it up, and then print out a new one for you. But anyway, so you go through the store, you go to each department, you get your ticket, and you get new tickets, and then you go to pay, and then you go to another place to pick it up. And it is quite the operation. Like, they had everything ready to go, but, like throw it at you at the end, and it's like, oh, my God. Like,
yeah.
So I'm sure similarly, at something as crazy like a convention, having extra sets of hands really, really does help.
Oh yeah. No, like I said, I definitely couldn't do it without Tom. Cause like even when me and Laura were just trying to set up, like it's more than like even two people can do. Like we just set up and tear down and stuff. And we don't even have that much compared to some of these people. So I don't know how these guys with these huge displays do it,
Yeah. I also have to say, to Tom's credit, and I don't say this to shame anybody else, I don't, but for the Kickstarter campaign, I did reach out to my art collector friends and asked if they could reach out to the artists that they know to see if anyone would be willing to do what you did. And Tom was the only one who came through. The others tried. They tried, but so this
Tom's
is
a stand-up guy.
This is a credit to Tom and to you. You guys were really clutch with that.
No, Tom's awesome. Yeah, he's like I say, he's like one of my best friends. So
nice,
it's cool.
So and again, I want to have you back next season on the other show. And we'll really get more into the convention side of this. But just generally speaking, what types of interactions are you having with people as they're coming up to you? I mean, I'm assuming it's quite the love fest, right? I mean, these are people coming up telling you that they like your work.
Oh, I mean, people come up and they're like, "I hate you." No, I've never had that yet, thank God. It's pretty much just what you'd expect, I guess. I mean, I don't think it's any different from, like, I guess what most artists would experience, just people come up and look at it. Usually it's a lot of it now, it's a lot of Green Lantern people come up because I've got the Green Lantern banner. So a lot of like just Green Lantern fans, but before that, just kind of like if they notice the posters and they'll come over. Yeah.
Right. So yes, you did do issues of Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps.
Yep.
I know you're going to be doing issues of Green Lanterns, right?
Yep. Just started on it, actually.
You just finished an arc on DC Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, before you got to DC, I know you did work for Aspen.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Blue Water.
That was the very first thing I did. I only did a few issues for them. But I did. I broke in with Blue Water. I did some of those bio comics. I did Vincent Price. I did Logan's run. I did Adam West. And then that's when I started. Then I got a few issues at Xenoscope, Grim Fairy Tales, Wonderland. And then from there I got an actual arc at Boom Comics on the story called Extermination, which is cool. It was like the second half of this alien invasion kind of story. And then after that is when I started at Aspen, and I was there for like 3 years.
We talked about this on the book club episode we did, but I know that one of your early inspirations, one of the things that made you want to do this professionally was the Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, Batman Hush story.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as I said on that other episode, I was not shocked, but it was just weird when I read that, and I'm thinking to myself, like, that's so recent, like it just came out. And then I did the math and I realized, no, like it's actually been quite a while. But so I know I know you mentioned that. And then as far as like early inspirations, Michael Turner's DC work, he did that terrific Supergirl arc on Superman, Batman.
So
and then
good.
the Flash covers.
That was my first introduction to him. And that is actually what made me read the Flash, was his covers. Like that was my introduction to that Jeff Johns stuff. And then I went back issues and found all the earlier Jeff Johns stuff and went back to all the Mark Waid and all that. But yeah, it was the cover where it's like he's kind of sideways and he's got the villains like around him. There's like Captain Cold and I think Mirror Master and but yeah, that I love his stuff, and those guys are definitely the two that were the biggest inspirations for me. I feel like you could probably see that in my art. It's kind of like a hybrid of those guys, but yeah, I mean, there's so many people now too that are like Brett Booth now is like probably one of my. Like I love his stuff. Like just the energy and the motion that he's able to convey is like awesome. So
yeah. No, that's fantastic. I mean, that run, that Flash run in particular stands out to me. It's one of my favorites. I remember because I got into Flash with number 152, which was the start of the Dark Flash, the Walter West
Oh,
storyline.
yeah. I've never read that.
You've never? Oh,
I've never read that. No.
So this came towards the end of Mark Waid's run. Like Mark Waid had a years-long run on Flash, and this was actually towards the end of it. I don't know that this part is quite as revered as the earlier part of his run, like Born to Run and Return of Barry Allen. But it's when I got into it. I remember being at Comic Book Heaven in White Plains, and they had their new comics out on the table. And I remember seeing the cover of Flash 152 with the Dark Flash, and it just caught my interest. It's one of those things I was thinking about this where it's like, I used to do that. Like I used to see a cover and be like, oh, this looks interesting, and try a new series. It's like, I don't really do that anymore.
I totally do that now.
That's great. I mean, I wish I did.
It's weird because like, I feel like I don't collect issues out of habit anymore. It's almost more of that where it's like, I pick stuff up based on like how cool the character looks or how cool the cover looks, you know? It's tough now though, because creative teams shift so fast now that it's hard to do that. But yeah, no, that they've been releasing the Mark Waid stuff in trades, and I've been collecting those trades. So because I have like a sprinkling of it. And I don't have I've never read any of the Walter West stuff, but I've have like stuff from like issue 100, 116, like a sprinkling of stuff in there. Like like Oscar Jimenez is the artist on a lot of it, and Michael Ringo was the other guy who did a lot of it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great run. So I've actually been going back and reading the earlier stuff, but yeah, that's where I got into it with the Walter West. And then I tracked down like the previous year's worth of stories, which was Chain Lightning, this like huge time travel storyline. But anyway, when Waid was done, Jeff, a young upstart, came on to do a 6-issue fill-in arc, and then that became a 5-year run.
That's the one where it was like
Wonderland.
Where it's like in medieval times and stuff. Yeah, that's a really good story. Because it's like not like at all what you think the Flash should be doing, like with like medieval like stuff. It's cool, but it works so good. Yeah.
So I mean, I can see why those that run, but especially those Turner covers stood out to you. What was it about Hush that hooked you in that way?
Hush, it was my initial why I bought it was because Wizard had run an article about who's Hush. Wizard magazine at the time was the comic book magazine for kids who don't know it these days. And they pumped up. They're like, oh, Jim Lee drawing Batman, and I'm like, who's Jim Lee? Like, because I was like 14 and I had read X-Men #1 as like a kid, but I didn't cognitively like put names to faces and stuff, you know. And I saw they just had a drawing of Batman in there, and I was like, oh, this Batman looks really cool. Next time I go to the comic book store when I'm buying X-Men and Spider-Man stuff, I'll pick up Batman. And it was toward the end of that Hush run. It was the one where he's fighting Ra's al Ghul, and I just remember like reading it. And at the time, the issue started with him. I think he's in the bat plane, and he shoots a grapple hook onto Air Force One where Lex Luthor's on the plane, and he kind of like it's this whole sequence of him jumping from like the bat plane onto Air Force One. And I just remember at the time, like that compared to all the other comics I was buying, like it just like blew my mind. Like it looked like so 3D and like immersive and like dynamic, and it just like I was like, oh my god, like I want to draw like this. Yeah.
Were you satisfied with the reveal of who Hush was?
Okay, so I got it right.
Yeah.
I guessed it. So the month before the last issue came out, I remember this so distinctly. It was that DC on their website ran a sweepstakes that said, guess who Hush is? And I said, I'm like, I think it's the Riddler because the whole thing's a riddle. And like it came to the end, I'm like, oh my god, I got it right. Like I was so like excited about that. But
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I was kind of similar as far as Jim Lee goes, because like again, our mutual friend Tom, like he followed him those X-Men days, the early Image days. Mm-hmm. But for me, like that just wasn't really part of my reading history. So I mean, actually, his Hush run is probably one of the first things of his that I read.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the first thing of his that I read regularly. Like I went back to a lot of that Image stuff because I know me and Tom talk about that all the time, like the '90s Image. Like we both love it so much. But yeah, like I remember Wildcats and X-Men from when I was younger, but it wasn't like I was buying them because I liked the characters. It wasn't like I didn't know who Jim Lee was when I was like 7, you know, like so it was. I definitely like was into it because of that. And then in high school I was like, oh, this is the same guy who did that. Oh, no wonder it looks so good. Like
so those were early inspirations. Well, I want to circle back to how you got into the industry because I'm always fascinated by that, and I've spoken with people who are are trying to do that or who have done it, and it's just always interesting to me. But just going back to New York Comic Con, it was great, meeting you and meeting Laura and getting to chat for a bit. And one of the things that I was most excited to learn is that you're a fellow Smallville fan.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little risky for me to bring this up because I feel like this entire episode might now be about Smallville.
Bring it on.
But yeah, I mean, I think we had a similar experience where, again, we're both born in 87, same age. So we were high school freshmen.
I was actually in 8th grade.
Okay, all right. So
my birthday's in the summer, so
all right, fair enough.
So we're the same age, but I think I'm 1 year because I graduated college in 2010.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I was a high school freshman when Clark was a high school freshman.
You were at the perfect. I thought I was at the perfect age, but you were at the perfect age.
It was perfect. Like as a lifelong Superman fan, to have this show come along, match up with where I was in my life and schooling and all of that, and also I feel like at that age, it was kind of perfect because I was old enough where I was able to appreciate what was going on in the show, but I wasn't looking for the seams necessarily.
Yeah.
Like I was able to kind of like just give myself over to the show and not overanalyze it too much.
Well, also it came out at a time when we didn't have Flash on TV. We didn't have Arrow. We didn't have any of these movies. We had, I mean, this is before Batman Begins. You know, it was before X-Men 2. Like it was like literally like, it was before pretty much the only movies that it was before Spider-Man 1, I think. It was like literally like the only movie that had come out was Blade and X-Men 1, I think, when Smallville came out. So it just like the seams that were there, like this bad effects or whatever, like they're not that bad. You know what I mean?
They hold up pretty well, I think, even looking back on them now. But yeah, I mean, man, that was my show. I mean, 10 years.
Oh, dude, it was so good. Yeah.
Did you watch it like live all the way through?
Yeah. I watched it because it was something me and my dad would do. And my mom sometimes would watch too, but it was really me and my dad who were like really into it. And then even when I went to college, like every Thursday or whatever day it was on, because it started hopscotching around at that point. But it was like, I'd, watch it and call my dad up right after. Like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? Yeah. So it's definitely something that, very fond place in my heart. And like to this day, to me, like Superman is Tom Welling. Like when I read the comics, when I draw him, like in my head, it's Tom Welling, and I know he probably doesn't want to hear that, like Tom Welling, but like to me, he was born to play Superman. Like,
yeah, he was. I mean, I agree. Like Tom Welling as Clark, Michael Rosenbaum's Lex, Erica Durance as Lois. I mean,
she's the best. She's the best one.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of the quintessential versions of those characters, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and especially Michael Rosenbaum as Lex. Like he's the perfect Lex. Like, yeah.
The thing about Tom Welling, it's like it's hard to play earnest, right, and not be corny. And I think when you can do it well, like he can, it's so effective. I mean, I think you see that with Chris Evans as well as Steve Rogers.
Yes,
because it can be a very tricky balance, and I feel like the version of Clark we got was. The writing was sometimes a little frustrating. I don't know how you felt about it. Because as much as I love the show, there were things about it that really frustrated me over the years.
I wasn't picking it apart. I was just kind of enjoying the ride. Yeah. I'm such a huge Flash fan. The only thing that drove me nuts was that they made it Bart Allen and they called him Impulse. That was really the only thing that irked the crap out of me. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I know you and I have talked about this off mic, but all these other shows, maybe the movies too, to an extent, but certainly the TV shows that we're seeing now, like all these CW shows, Gotham as well, they really owe a debt to Smallville. I mean, Smallville, I think, paved the way and carried that torch for a long time and sustained itself over 10 years. Oh,
totally. Yeah. I mean, even Man of Steel, the movie Man of Steel, takes a lot from Smallville, like a lot. Like if you watch the show, you can see it in like, I mean, even Chloe Sullivan has a shout out in the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's, that it definitely carried the torch. And I think like for people of our generation that watch the show, like we said, he's our definitive Superman. Even though he only wore the costume in one episode. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like,
and not even then, really.
Not even the whole thing. I mean, the ending of it was good, but if I had my pick, it would have gone like 15 seconds longer, and you would have seen him like rip the shirt off completely in the whole suit, and he'd do just like a fly, like Christopher Reeve style flying, like, and you just see him like for like 10 seconds, like in the suit. Would have been awesome. But
that ending, and for people who aren't aware, in the series finale, he finally embraces his heroic destiny, but you don't actually see him in the costume. Like anytime you see, he's rendered digitally. Yeah, and then at the end, you get the shirt rip.
You get the shirt rip. Yeah, you get the which you got in Justice League too, which was awesome.
Yeah,
like I was so happy about that. Yeah,
but I eventually made my peace with the finale, and my feeling was like it represented what the show was over the 10 seasons, which was overall enjoyable, some frustrating moments, but like ultimately worth the ride.
Yeah. Oh no, it's my favorite show for sure.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
And I think I kind of think the show was more popular than I thought it was going to be. I think the initial plan was to have 4 years in high school and then like the fourth year would be the last season of it. And you could tell like when he's in like the black trench coat and all, like there's a lot of nonsense in seasons like 7, 8, you know, like, but in the last season kind of like pulled it all back around and made it good. So,
you know, I actually have to say, like, I didn't mind. I know people really didn't like the black trench coat. Style-wise, maybe they could have gone in a different direction, but I actually like the idea of the red-blue blur and then the blur, like the idea of there being sort of like an in-between stage before he's full-on Superman. Like, that kind of made sense to me because I feel like stepping out in front of the world is like such a big step. And the fact that there was something in between, like I know they were just killing time, but like just trying to look at it in the context of his journey, like I was okay with it.
Yeah, no, I was okay with that. I didn't like they were calling him the blur. I thought that was kind of lame. I wish they were just calling him something else. But
did you prefer the blur or the red blue blur?
I thought they were both lame because I thought it was like a lame version of Flash, kind of like that. But I hated the trench coat thing just because I thought the trench coat. Nobody looks good in a trench coat. Nobody like. Not even Gambit.
Well, it's always great to chat with a fellow Smallville fan. All these shows, right? They're coming back for these revivals, sequels, whatever. I actually have an idea for a potential Smallville revival. I don't think we'll ever get it.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. But you never know. It's like you never know.
You never know. I think they're too old at this point.
But that plays into my idea. So the idea that I have is, like, I've made my peace. I don't think we're ever going to see Tom Welling in the Superman costume. I think if we were going to see it, it would have been in the series finale. Yeah. So I'm accepting the idea that he will not wear the costume. So
do you think that's his choice?
Yes.
Okay.
I truly do.
Because if I was Tom Welling, I would be like, I'm wearing this damn costume in the last episode. Like, I would have like been like adamant that like I would have had extended scenes wearing the costume, but I guess you're right.
That's just the sense that I don't know for sure, but that's the sense that I get. But the idea that I would have is that kind of like a Kingdom Come-esque thing where we saw over 10 seasons pre-Superman, maybe in a revival we see post-Superman something, and it doesn't need to be the death of Lois a la Kingdom Come, maybe it's something else, but has forced him to retire and return to the farm. And then something happens in Smallville. Maybe, I don't know, it doesn't need to be Meteor Freaks again, but maybe something that kind of circles back to the origins of the show.
That'd be cool.
And he's got to, get back
like
into superheroics. Well, not like so old, but with Tom Welling's already in his 40s, right?
Yeah.
Or close to 40.
Yeah.
Which is not old, but you figure if this happens over the coming years or whatever. Again, I don't think it'll ever happen, but something like that, like a limited series revival. Post-Superman career, back on the farm, and he's got to dig out that old red jacket. You can imagine the scene, though. Like, he goes into the barn, like, he holds up the jacket. Like, it'd be great.
Yeah, like, the suit gets torched in the first episode, and, like, so he just has the jacket. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I'd be on board with that. That would be fun.
I would watch that. I'd totally watch that,
Yeah.
I want to see him show up in one of these CW shows as a superhero. Like, a different superhero. Like a Hal Jordan or something. Like, something, like, completely different than Superman.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Well, so on Supergirl, we have Erica Durance now playing Kara's birth mother.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And it's like, if we ever need a Jor-El, you got the perfect guy. Or Kara's father, but I would like to see Tom Welling play Jor-El. Yeah. That would be pretty neat.
That'd be cool.
Think.
That'd be cool.
So, we're talking about the TV side. There's also this whole movie component to the DC universe as well.
Yeah.
And I actually don't know what I'll call this episode yet. It'll probably be like a, spotlight on V Ken Marion, but V Ken Marion. But I did contemplate calling it like the DC Extended Universe Support Club. Because, I've talked about this on past episodes and I want to get your take on it as well, but I really feel like these DC movies get far more hate than they deserve.
Way more hate than they deserve. I like all of them. Like, I love some of them, but I like all of the ones that have come out. Like, even Suicide Squad I didn't think was, like, nearly as bad as people were making it out to be. Like, it was kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be based on the trailers, and I don't understand why people were so, like, incensed by it. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife and I saw you and Laura at the Alamo Draft House for Justice League.
Yeah.
We happened to be going at the same time, so it was fun. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I loved it. I literally, it was like everything I wanted it to be. Like, again, the negative reviews were really bumming me out, and the fact that it didn't make as much money the first weekend as people thought. Like, I'm like, I don't know why, because it seemed like it hit all the notes that people were like didn't like about the other movies. Like, I don't know. Like, it was brighter, it was more optimistic. Superman rocked in it. Like,
yeah, I feel like we finally got the Superman, like the right tone for Superman in these movies. You know what? Honestly, my only real issue with the movie was the how and when of Superman's return. Like, I just wanted a little bit more with that.
Yeah, I heard a lot of reviews talking about, like, I listened to a bunch of podcast reviews talking about it, and they all had their own opinions on it. But yeah, that seemed to be the one like thing that everyone talked about, was they didn't like how Superman was brought back with the mother box and stuff. I didn't hate it, but I didn't think about it too much. I knew he had to come back, and I didn't really care how they did it. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
I didn't really mind that. When I say the how, that I didn't really mind so much. It was more just, I wish there had been a little bit more of a narrative thread of we have to bring back Superman. Because it just kind of, the way it plays in the movie, it's just like Bruce has this idea, like, oh, we could use this to bring back, like, out of nowhere. I don't know. I just would have liked if we had seen Bruce working on the problem earlier, right? Like, I have to bring back Superman, but I don't have a power source. And then it's like, here's the mother box. Like, it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. The only thing that bothered me about the mother box, and it involved Flash, so I want to get your take on this. Why did Flash need to charge the mother box the second it hit the water? Why? That felt so arbitrary.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cyborg was just like, you have to do it the second it hits the water.
Yeah,
it's like,
I don't
why?
know. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't even think about that. Again, I didn't even think about it. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Because it was because the ship had no power, right? That's why he needed his lightning to juice it up. Yeah, I don't know.
The timing piece of it just seemed like we need to create some urgency, so we'll make it that it has to be at this exact moment.
Like a cool slow motion moment where he's like, you know, like.
I feel like once Superman was back in action, they really struck the right tone with him. But I got to tell you, and I might be in the minority here, but when he's immediately post-resurrection and he's just tearing through the league and he grabs Batman and he turns that line back on him and he says, "Tell me, do you bleed?" I loved it.
I did too. I did too. I loved it. Yeah, I know. Because I hate the idea that Batman beats Superman up all the time. Like, I really don't like that. Because, come on, let's be real. Superman would always beat Batman. Yeah, I like that whole scene. I kind of wish he had the black costume, even though it would make no sense. You know, I wish he had the black costume. Would it have made
any less sense than his shirt ripping off, but his pants being perfectly intact, which is what happened in the movie?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that either. Like, yeah, but yeah, no, that whole fight was like great though. Like, yeah,
but it's that line in particular, because it's like, I like the angry Superman, but in certain instances, and I think if he's angry all the time, that's too far in that direction. But like at the right moment, like the end of I always go back to the end of the Justice League cartoon where he has that speech to Darkseid where he's like, I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard, but like, I can really cut loose with you. Like, I love that. And so when we get those moments of like angry Superman, when they're moments and not the entire movie, I think it works well.
Yeah I loved when like he's fighting Cyborg and Aquaman, Wonder Woman, he's got them all, and then the Flash like starts running around him, and like in like Speed Force mode, he starts turning his head. Flash is like, yeah, that was good.
Now, as a Flash fan, how did you? And I know you're a fan of the television show.
Oh yeah, totally.
How did you feel about this movie depiction of
the different version of him?
Yeah.
It's a different take. Like it kind of felt almost like they're going to the cartoon a little bit, like the cartoon tape, the Just the Cartoon version of him, where he's a little like funnier and a little, because like Barry in the comics is a little more square. Like I think the Grant Gustin on the show is like more in line with like how the comic was, and this one's more in line with the cartoon show portrayal of him, which I know is Wally West, but again, Wally West in that show isn't how he's portrayed in the comics, so yeah, people confuse that sometimes. But no, I liked it. I thought it was a good take, and he was still the CSI guy, which is cool, and like his I love his costume. I know I've heard some people not. I think it looks great. Like I think it looks way better than the TV show costume.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people seem to feel otherwise.
Yeah, no, I love this guy. I like that's like that bright red with like the white symbol and the wings. They're not lightning bolts, but they're actual wings on his head. Like yeah, like the Mercury wings. Yeah, I think it looks cool. So
Yeah, he worked more for me than I thought he would.
yeah,
And I felt that the comic relief that he provided was well needed and well timed, and I like it. It worked well, I thought.
yeah. I hope he's in going forward. I hope he becomes a little more like confident. Like I hope they portray the character as like becomes more of like established hero, kind of like the progression that Wally had going from like unconfident to unconfident.
Right.
And I know it's Barry. But yeah, no, I'm excited. Apparently there's a whole scene cut out with Iris where he like saves her from a car crash, and like I saw photos of it online and like it looked awesome. Like, so I don't know why they cut it out. But.
Yeah, and I know we had talked about this. Like, there's so much. Like, even if you go back, and I did this maybe at work the other day, I went back and I watched the earlier trailers, and like, I mean, there's again stuff that gets cut out, which that happens in a lot of movies, no matter what. But with this one in particular, with the reshoots and the change in directors from Snyder to Whedon for post production. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like there's a lot that got left out. And I would, when we did our book club episode, we talked about Snyder's Watchmen and him as a director generally. It's like, I would actually, and you and I might be among the few, but like, I would love to see the Snyder, like the full original Snyder cut of this movie.
I would love to see that. Yeah, totally. Again, I'm wondering if the black costume was in the Snyder cut. Like, it might have been.
Well, so, and just for the record, I mean, that's not this, like, I think, you see Whedon's influence in this and probably a lot of the humor, and a lot of the humor I enjoyed. So I'm not saying I think the Snyder version would be better necessarily, but I would just be curious to see all of that footage. And I don't know, it's like, maybe there was the black costume because clearly, there was that whole bit with Henry Cavill's mustache, right? That they removed via CGI, and his face does look a little off in certain scenes, including that post-resurrection scene. So I don't know. What was the original version of that? Maybe it was the black costume.
In one of the earliest trailers, why I know this is because like any footage of Flash that came out, I was like nitpicking. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Because he's my favorite character and I'm just so excited to see him on the screen and stuff. But in the early trailers, there's that one scene when he's fighting Superman, when he like starts to run, he like touches the ground and then like takes off. And in the first trailer, it looks like it's nighttime. And then in like the last trailer in the movie, it's like bright daytime. So like I'm wondering, like,
interesting.
It had to be like completely different. Like, but I don't know how much of the humor was Whedon though, because I feel like Aquaman and Flash, like the humor that they had probably was in there from the beginning.
That's true. Like, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe we're overestimating Whedon's influence on this. Well, all right. So that actually brings me to something else that I want to say about the tone of this, because I know like some of the more critical reviews, accuse this of being, a reaction to the reviews of Batman v Super, the response to Batman v Superman and an attempt by DC to be more like Marvel. But like, I felt like the tone was lighter, but I felt like I don't know, it didn't feel unnatural. Like it felt like a natural progression, and maybe I'm giving Snyder and company too much credit, but I feel like this was the direction that they were going in. Like I feel like the end of Batman v Superman set up the return of an altered Superman.
I completely agree. This is just me being a fan, in my opinion of it, but I don't think that like Superman. I think Superman always inspired hope in this world. I just think that in Batman versus Superman, it was like seen from Batman's perspective, and like the way they shot stuff was like when he's saving. You see him saving people all the time in Batman versus Superman, but it's shot in a way where it's like very like somber and like dark, and like I think it's because the whole movie. I think that's a Batman movie, really, with Superman as the antagonist. And like, not that he's the villain, but he's like the antagonist to the main character. And I think it kind of like the Dark Knight Returns book, where like Superman isn't really shown in the greatest light because it's from Batman's perspective of like looking at him from this like fear of being an alien. And it's not until the very end when Batman comes around that Superman, like you actually see him as like, he's shot in a way where he looks more heroic. And then like at the end, when all the people are with their lights and stuff and they build that monument where it's like, if you seek his... Oh, whoops, knocked it over. Getting really excited here talking about this.
Good thing that was empty. That could have been bad.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I'm going to put this down
No
here.
worries.
When they build his monument, it says, if you seek his monument, look around you. And it's like this whole big, like, what Superman means. And like Clark even makes the comment where in that movie where the whole world doesn't share Bruce Wayne's sentiment. Like most of the world thinks the opposite. So like, I don't know. I kind of feel like he's always there. It just wasn't shown.
You know what? Maybe I mean I've been defending Batman v Superman, but that's an excellent point. And yeah, maybe Maybe Snyder's just misunderstood.
Yeah, I think he knocks out of the park with these movies. Like, I like them. Like,
It's it's so funny. Like even though I enjoy these movies, and I did a whole podcast on in defense of Batman v Superman, but it's like it's weird. I'm just used to encountering so much negativity from these movies. It's like so weird to talk to someone who's like they're great.
well, I think especially with Justice League, I think people went into it wanting to hate it. Like,
Yeah.
I think there. I don't see how you could go into that movie with an open mind and coming out like hating it. Like, I just don't get it, because it's like if you go in wanting to pick it apart, like, yeah, oh, the villain sucks and blah, blah, blah. But it's like all the Marvel villains suck too, though. Like, and if the villains are really great, then the heroes are shortchanged, and I don't want the hero shortchanged in Justice League. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I agree. I mean, I definitely had that sense as well, that people really seemed like to have it out for this movie. And it's like, why? I just don't get that. It's like, why would you want to go into a movie with that attitude? It's like, if you feel that strongly about it and you just don't go, like you vote with your wallet, like that I can respect. It's like, okay, fine. Like, you really think you're going to dislike it, so you don't go.
Yeah.
But it's like to go and be like, oh, I'm not going to like this. It's like, why? Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't get it. But I feel like, and from like reading stuff from friends on Facebook and everything, I kind of get the sense people who did go in with a willingness and an open mind, I think did enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to enjoy. I mean, the villain piece of it was probably what I disliked most.
Me too.
But again, like, I agree. Like, that's not what this movie was about. Like, the movie was about the team coming together, and everything else was really just kind of, to get you from, from one point to another.
It's not, like, objectively, it's not any deeper or less deep than the Avengers was. Like, Avengers is a paper-thin plot. Like, it really does. Like, but you don't care because you like the characters interacting. And, like, it may be my DC bias, but, like, I was just so happy to see Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg, like, on the screen, like, in real life. Like, I never thought I'd see it, or I wanted to see it my whole life. So it was like, You know
what I think with the villain, I think the fact that they use CGI to render him, and he wasn't rendered so great either. I think that compounded the problem, because it's like, if it's a simple villain, but at least it's a physical person, maybe you connect with it a little bit more. But I think like having a CGI villain with such a basic motivation left a little bit to be desired. But it's like, that's really the worst thing about the movie for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really wish his face was the actor. I wish the actual like face part of it was like Syrian Hines, I think, was the actor. I wish they like left his face as the face and just CG'd his whole body. But But I enjoyed it. I got choked up when Clark reunited with Lois and then with his mother. Yeah. No, yeah, I really liked it. Like, I liked all the stuff with Henry Allen with the prison. Like, I thought he was great.
So I wanted to ask you about that. And Steph and I were talking about this after the movie, because it's like, I'm torn, because it was very reminiscent of what we saw on the Flash TV series. And it's like, does it make sense to do the same thing because that's what people are familiar with? Or like, would it have made more sense to like do something a little different? Like, it was just weird seeing like the same setup, but not Grant Gustin and John Wesley Shipp.
I mean, that's his story, though. It's like saying, like, does Clark need parents on a farm? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's kind of like...
In fairness, though, it wasn't always Barry's story. I mean, this whole thing about his dead mom and his dad in prison, I mean, this is only over the past few years.
That's true, but Barry also didn't get that post-crisis reboot that has kind of become the mainstay for all these characters. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the original Superman origin isn't the one that most people know. It's like it's the John Byrne one. You know what I mean? So, or an approximation of the John Byrne one. So he's one of those characters that didn't have that post-crisis modernization. His post-crisis modernization was Wally West. Like, that's what it was. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that when Jeff Johns did Flash Rebirth, that was kind of like a delayed, kind of modernized, decompressed origin. Because like Batman got Year One, Superman got Man of Steel, Wonder Woman got the George Perez thing, like, and like like all those characters, like, and Green Lantern. I mean, his origin is really what we think of as the Jeff Johns one. You know what I mean? So, I mean, for the modern day, So, but yeah, I mean, I'm very excited. I'm really excited to see the Aquaman movie. It should be good.
I am too. No, I mean, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I enjoyed this Jason Momoa take on the character.
Yeah, me too.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
No, it was, like I said, I enjoyed it. I mean, do you feel, you seem pretty, loud and proud with your enjoyment of these movies, but I don't know, do you ever feel like a little, not nervous is probably too strong a word, but like a little apprehensive about sharing these opinions when so many people seem to hate these movies?
No, not at all. Because like I feel like there's a lot of herd mentality going on. Like I didn't see the new Spider-Man movie because I thought I would hate it. I want to see it now that it's on Blu-ray, but it fell when I had a deadline and everything, and like I didn't want to I wasn't like, I'm not gonna waste this time that I don't have right now and for a movie I'm probably gonna hate. But I feel like it's, from what I've heard about the Spider-Man movie, they take great liberty with his story, and like not even close from what I know of Spider-Man to what was on this movie. From what I'm told, it's like not even remotely the same character, but like everyone seems to love it because it's in the Marvel universe. You know what I mean?
It's it's interesting though, because it's like, I enjoy the Marvel. I mean, for the record, I enjoy the Marvel movies. Like I go when they come out, I enjoy them.
I do too. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, like they're entertaining and they're a good time, but. Again, going back to Batman v Superman, I know people complain like, oh, it was took itself too seriously, but I don't know. Sometimes I like a little bit more weight to this, and the Marvel movies sometimes feel like they're fun, but sometimes like they're light.
They're family movies.
Yeah,
is what they feel like. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I love the serious stuff. I love taking it seriously. I love making it like epic and like. But see, this is of the Netflix shows, Iron Fist is my favorite one. So again, I don't think I'm in line with like most people's opinions on this stuff.
You are an outlier. So far, yeah. we've been seeing eye to eye. But yeah. So Iron Fist is not my favorite. However, once again, I really do feel like it did not deserve the hate that it got.
It got so much hate for no reason.
I know.
Like, and people were saying that he had like crappy fights. I thought his fight scenes looked so good. Like, because it looked like. I think people are confusing like aggressiveness with like good fights. Like Daredevil fights very aggressive. I took karate like my whole life, so like to me that's why I love Iron Fist. He's like the martial art. He's my favorite Marvel character, and that's probably. And again, I'm biased because I wanted the show to be good, and I think it's good. But I like that his fights weren't like aggressive. Like I like that he was very calm and in control and smooth, and it wasn't like he was like just beating the shit out of people. He was like fighting them to submission, then moving on. It wasn't like this aggressive, dark, angry thing, you know?
Right. Well, so, if you're listening to this and you too enjoy the Zack Snyder DC films, join our support club. You're not alone.
Yeah, totally.
I talk to people from time to time who express similar opinions. Like there are others out there. It's,
I just... If you don't like the movies, that's great. Like if you hate the DC movies and you love the Marvel movies, like I mean, that's your opinion. That's awesome. But I just don't like the whole thing where everyone says this sucks, so it must suck, and I must agree with it. Like I don't like that. It's like form your own opinion. See it yourself. Like form your own opinion, and don't be afraid to say like, yeah, I like this or I didn't like. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, yeah, I never get in fights with people about it because ultimately this is just for fun. It's like this is just fun stuff, and people who get so angry about it, like. I just want them to keep making them. You know what I mean? That's like my only investment in these movies. Like I just want these movies to keep getting made. So
yeah, I feel like I used to get a lot more worked up over these TV shows and movies and be a lot more demanding in what I wanted from them. And then I got a girlfriend, and then I wasn't. And I don't say that to be flip or anything, but it's like I think that made a difference. I wasn't so worried anymore about the color of Superman's costume. It's like this shade of blue, that shade of blue. It's all right.
Yeah. I mean, also, I think the more that this stuff is made, I think we just start subconsciously. I'm not even sure if you thought about this yet, but subconsciously, I've realized that like this is the Justice League for right now. In 10 years from now, is going to be a different Justice League. In 10 years from now, is going to be a different. And like, so if you don't love this particular version of it, or this isn't like supplanting the real version, which is, in my opinion, the comic books. You know what I mean? So it's just another take that's out there.
Well said. Well, speaking of comics, circling back to the comic book side, what's it like working for DC?
Super fun.
So what's the process like? So again, you mentioned before, doing work for some other smaller publishers before getting this DC work. So how did you parlay those earlier gigs into drawing at DC?
Well, how I originally started at Aspen was that, where did I start? I went to art school. I went to Pratt Institute for animation. I took a lot of comic book classes and illustration classes when I was there, though. And one of my teachers was a comic book artist for Marvel. His name was Floyd Hughes, but he had a bunch of pen names. He's British, so he used pen names. Reggie Jones, I think, was his big Marvel one that he did. Like, Inhumans and Deadpool and stuff on. Green Arrow maybe did, but yeah, but he did a lot of inking and he was like the big comic book guy, and he great teacher, best teacher I had, Floyd Hughes, awesome. If you go to Pratt, you try to take his classes. But yeah, so I was on his advice. I started going to conventions and the New York Comic Con and just started showing my art around, and it took years, man, of just like going over and over and over and over and over. And like I said, and I got the Blue Water gig because I emailed them. I cold emailed them, and they were like the only comic book company that emailed me back.
Did you email them samples?
Yeah. And I was doing sample pages like constantly throughout college and after I graduated, and it was just this constant just grind of like doing stuff, you know, over and over and over again, and going to these cons and getting feedback. And eventually, when I got the Blue Water thing, I used that work to then show Xenoscope at a con, and then Xenoscope took my art back with them, and then I got an email from their guy, and then with those Xenoscope pages, Boom actually emailed me. Then I did the Boom work, and then at the New York Comic Con, I showed my Boom work to Aspen, and they had seen me for years coming around like showing stuff, and they were like, "Oh, we think you're good enough now, so do you want to come and draw it for us?" And I'm like, yeah, hell, of course I do, because they were like, of all the indie companies that I wanted to work for, they were like the one, because they were Michael Turner's company, and like. And to this day, they're like my comic book family. Like, I'm still super tight with them. I still do covers for them. I'm still like, I'm always going to consider them my comic book family, because they're just like such like good people. And yeah, and I learned so much working with them. Like, there was like their editors, and Frank Mastermar, who runs the company, and Vince Hernandez, their editor, and Peter Steigerwald, the other co-owner and colorist extraordinaire. Like, they're all like very tight, and they helped me grow as an artist and all that. So it was great. Great experience. What was the original question? I got so like sidetracked there.
No, it's all good. No, how you ultimately ended up at DC.
Oh, so when I was working at Aspen, I was working with JT Cruel, the writer. He's a writer. I don't know. I was working with him for pretty much the whole time. I worked on a Fathom miniseries that he had co-written with Vince Hernandez. And then I worked on Soulfire, which he had written. And then I worked on this book called Journey, the second volume that he had created. It was a creator-owned book for him. And it was this fantasy book. And I did the second volume of it with him, and me and him have such a great working relationship. And yeah, and he's also does a lot of work at DC, and he had this idea that he wanted to, and he knew that I love the DC characters, and I really wanted to get a chance to work there and stuff. And he had this idea about bringing back these 90s characters from the Bloodlines. What was it originally?
The annuals.
Yeah. And I had never heard of any of these characters when he brought this up to me. I had like no idea what this is about, because I'm a huge DC fan, but this was like a little bit before my time. And but so he brought them, showed them to me, and we came up with this idea. He came up with this pitch, and I liked a lot of the characters, and he pitched it to DC. And from there, I don't know what happened, but DC approved it, and we were off and running. So yeah. JT handled pretty much all the because I didn't know any of them at that time. JT was the one who.
That's who you know, right?
Yeah, but it's also like hard work too. You
know?
No.
Yeah.
No, because it's like, because if like me and JT didn't get along, or
right.
if I was like slacking when I was working with him at Aspen, or like any of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like I think the best advice I would give to an artist is whatever you're working on, do it with 110% of your ability, you know, and like genuinely want to do a good job on it, because like it all really matters, you know, like.
Right.
Like the quality of your work, but the timeliness and the reliability, and like making sure you hit your deadlines, and like that's like super important, because there's so many people depending on you. Like their jobs depend on you, like not just like the company who depend on you to get your stuff out, but also like your inkers and your colorists, and all these people depend on you to make sure you're hitting your deadline. So it's like, right. Yeah, it's just be a reliable, you know.
Yeah. No, and I didn't mean to imply it was just connections. Like, I certainly know, yeah. There's so much that goes into it, but at least that helped you get your foot in the door, and then you were able to cultivate relationships with other editors. Like, so once you did the Bloodlines, how did that lead to these other projects?
Yeah, no, they just seemed to like what I did, and they shared my stuff around to the other editorial groups, and the Superman / Green Lantern group was one editorial group, and they're the ones who I've been working with since. So It's been good.
So they just reach out to you and they're like, hey, we have an arc on Trinity that we want you to do?
No, it started out
or with Hal Jordan.
What was the first thing I did with them? It was the DC holiday special for last year. It was the Green Lanterns part of it. And that's when the first time I drew them. And then right after that, they're like, oh, we got an opening on Hal. We got one issue on Hal. Do you want to try it out? And I was like, oh yeah, I'd so much. Hal's like one of my favorite characters, you know? And then after that one issue, they gave me an arc on Hal. And then I did an issue of Titans, which was Brett Booth draws that book regularly. It's the book with Wally West. And I've been friends with Brett for a while, and Andrew Dahlhaus and those guys on that, and Norm Ratman, that whole art team. And they wanted me to do a fill-in on that book. And I got to do one issue of Titans, which was great because I got to draw Wally, and that was like so much fun. And then I was supposed to come back and do more Hal, but before I was done with that, they were just like, hey, do you want to do Trinity instead? And I was like, yeah, of course I want to do that. I want to draw Superman, of course, you know? So, yeah.
No, I mean, that's awesome that you continue to, get these assignments. Clearly they like what you do for them. And I think everything you said before too, about just being professional and hitting deadlines and all of that. I mean, I'm sure that's so critical in all of this. I mean, in a past episode, I spoke with Brandon Montclair, who was one of the former owners of Alternate Realities, and he was an editor at DC for a while, and he's a comic book writer and creator as well. But that was something that he talked about as far as, breaking into the industry, like the importance of, fostering those relationships with editors. And, once they know the quality of your work and your work ethic, it's like they'll continue to give you assignments.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think so. I mean, I have, like I said, so I've only been there a couple of years, but yeah, that seems pretty much it. Like, it seems like if you're reliable and you can like keep your quality of work up, that's definitely the most important thing. Yeah.
I mean, I guess what's the goal? Like an exclusive contract, a series regular penciling gig?
I would love that. Exclusive contract would be great. I'd love to just work on these characters, like I'd love to go draw more Hal Jordan. I'd love to draw the Flash, because obviously, I'd love to draw Superman and Action Comics and like Nightwing. I would love to. I mean, there's so many DC. Aquaman. I'd love to draw Aquaman for like a run,
right?
Because I've always liked that character. Like even before he was like cool, with Jason Momoa. Like I've liked him. Like when I was a kid, I liked Aquaman. So there's so many of the DC characters I just like want to draw so badly. So
yeah, I mean, it's we've only spent so much time together, and I'm sure there are times where this can be a grind, but the overall sense that I get from you is that you seem genuinely happy and enthused to be doing this.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, they're definitely under the deadline strains. There's definitely like I said, the last 3 months, like I didn't leave my house that much. I didn't have weekends or anything. I was just working like crazy, but it's worth it. It's like the hard work is like, you get to do what you love and you get paid for it, and I get to draw these characters I've always loved as a kid, like the stuff that I was telling my friend this, like he goes to work and he's like crunching numbers all day, and like when I'm at work, I'm like thinking about how big should Batman's like ears be in his silhouette. You know what I mean? It's like I get to think about like stuff that most people think is just like fun or like, not important, but like that's like my job, so it's awesome. Like it's so much fun.
No, that's very cool. And then what's the working relationship like with the writers? I guess specifically the writers and inkers that you're working with.
I mean, I've always had good working relationships with my writers. On Green Lantern and Hal Jordan, it was Robert Venditti, who's a really cool guy, and then on Trinity, it was Rob Williams, also another really great guy. I got to hang out with both of them at New York Comic Con. I like both. They're both their writing styles are really great.
Do they consult with you? Do you give any input, or is it more just like, here's the script, like go do your thing?
With JT, we were very collaborative because we had worked together so long, and Bloodlines was almost like that reimagining of that book was almost like we kind of like it wasn't like we co-plotted it because he wrote it all, but it was like very like we both threw ideas in there in terms of like characters and character development and all that. But with the two Robs that I worked with, they do the story with the editors. The editors break all that stuff down, and then they give it to me, and then I send layouts in, and then usually to like the writers and the editors and everyone, and then get feedback from that, and then move forward. So it's all very collaborative. And my inker, who I'm working with now, his name is Sandu Floria. He's like one of the best. Like he's so good. I've worked with great anchors. I got to work with Dexter Vines. I got to work with Ray McCarthy. I got to work with Mick Gray. I got to work with Sean Parsons. Like I've got to work with like really great guys. So they've all done great work and like kicked butt, and I always like, it's so cool to see the inks come back, so.
And you pencil rather tightly, right?
Yeah, pretty tight. Yeah.
I mean, I know. So again, like the art side of it is a little outside my wheelhouse, but I know how important the inker can be. Going back to Tom, he and I always talked about. I mean, he's a big Jim Lee fan, and as I am as well. And I know Jim Lee primarily works with Scott Williams, right? And there was, I don't know if you remember this, but DC put out a Heroes book based on the NBC series.
Oh yeah.
And one of the covers, Jim Lee penciled it, and then Alex Ross painted over it.
Yes.
And there were no inks. Like I think he painted. It didn't look great, at least as far as we felt. I don't know if you felt otherwise, but it just kind of highlighted that, like, the importance of that relationship that they have. Jim Lee and Scott Williams. Normally.
Oh yeah. Well, it's when there's a penciler and inker, like the finished product is it's a third artist, essentially. It's like literally like, because if you look at, I'll use myself as an example. Like if you look at my work from the past, and another inker I got to work with is Norm Ratman. I only got to work with him on that one issue of Titans because he normally inks Brett, and he was on that book. But Norm kicked ass on that too. I have one of the pages actually from that on my wall. But if you look at all the stuff I've done, it looks like different. Like each inker brings their own thing to it, and you can all tell I'm the one who drew it, the pencils, but each inker adds a different kind of like sheen to it, so it looks like a different style almost for each different one. And it's really cool. And that's what I like about comics, is that's very collaborative,
Yeah.
And I was just at a con a couple weeks ago, an indie con at Pratt, like with independent artists and stuff, and most of them, I was on a panel and I was the only guy who did mainstream work there, and one girl was like shocked that like I had the confidence to like give my work to an inker, and because like she's someone who did it all herself from start to finish. And I on one hand I understand that mentality, but on the other hand, like for me, it's like, to me, this is like what makes comics so special, is that it is a team effort and it's a collaborative process. And when you get people that lock really well together, like it just like is great, it's like, it's cool. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I hear you. And right, it's the inker, it's the colorist, the letterer,
yeah.
All of these different pieces coming together. We talked about Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee on Batman Hush, and one thing that has always been said about Jeff Loeb is that he writes well for his artists. Like he really tailors the scripts for the artists. So if someone were to try to tailor a script for V Ken Marion, I would like, what kind of stuff would be in that script?
The heroes and costumes all the time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, you have to draw the stuff where they're out of costume and stuff, but that stuff's not nearly as fun to draw. Like, I just like, what I mean? For that might be not a very deep answer, but yeah, that's like the stuff that's fun to draw, like the fight scenes and the characters in costume, like the big, like in your face kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And so I know, we said you pencil tightly. I know you have described your approach as more traditional, your process is more traditional, right? So it's pencil and paper,
yep,
right? You're not doing it digitally.
In your eraser.
Yeah.
Yeah. No digital. No. I like having the original art to sell, or to have if I decide to keep it, because I've definitely kept like a lot of my pages that don't sell.
Yeah. For people who might be interested in purchasing one of your original pages, where could they do that?
Find me at a convention. You can email me or find me on Twitter or Instagram. I don't have a website up yet. I know it sounds so unprofessional, but I just haven't gotten, there's so much stuff I have to do with that. Like I haven't gotten around to, but yeah. Just reach out to me on like Twitter or email me. So,
and then as far as, like hitting deadlines and stuff like that, I watched an interview you did. It was at Comic-Con last year, I think. And you were saying, like 8 to 14 hours a page, depending on how complicated it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a full day, plus depending on how complicated it is.
Yeah. No, there's many days where, like, especially just recently, where I was up till like 1 a.m, and waking up at like 6, and just getting a little run down with that. But yeah, no, we got to hit the deadlines, and I don't want any of the pages to suffer because of it, like I don't want to like not draw like a background or anything, so yeah.
It's always interesting to me, and this was such a big piece of, the Comic Shop podcast, because I'm always fascinated by people who take what they love, comics, and then turn it into their career. In those cases, comic book stores. But I mean, a similar thing for you. And I get the sense that I know the answer to this based on everything we've been talking about. But I mean, is it still something you enjoy? Like, I mean, it's still fun and cool, and it doesn't just feel like a job.
I mean, it's still fun and cool, but it definitely feels like a job. Yeah. I'm not gonna like lie about that, because it's definitely like even though it's fun, it's still work. You know what I mean? And I'm sure if you ask anybody, like you ask like basketball players, I'm sure they're like, oh, I'm so tired right now from like working, like from like shooting these free throws. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, it's definitely work, but it's definitely rewarding and really fun, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Do you write at all?
I've got a creator-owned superhero book that I've been slowly working on for the last couple of years. Yeah, I'll bring it out at some point, but it's hard to find the time to around like doing this all the time to actually work on it. But
yeah, no, I mean, again, like you mentioned with the deadlines and stuff. It's like I can only imagine what it's like, and I know from being a comic book reader, how books sometimes can be late, or again, need fill-in artists or stuff like that. So to be able to hit those deadlines, is really something. And I know it's tough.
Yeah, it's definitely that's the hardest aspect about this for sure, is the deadline stuff, because it becomes a grind. It's like, and then when you're feeling kind of sick or whatever, you still got to work. So it's like,
I'm not trying to get you to badmouth anybody, but I'm just curious, because again, like there are some artists who are like notoriously late, and books that are months delayed and things like that. I mean, as an artist yourself, when you see something like that, do you just kind of feel like, hey, like, get your act together?
I don't really think it's weird. I don't really pay too much attention to like what other people are doing. That might sound really bad, but like I'm just so focused on my own stuff that like I don't really pay attention to what else is going on. Just like I don't really read comic news anymore. Like I had no idea what was going on Doomsday Clock at all. Like when we were talking about that before, like I don't read preview pages or anything. I just kind of stick to my own stuff, because I feel like if I go on the internet rabbit hole about looking at this stuff, then eventually I'm gonna find my way to reviews of my own stuff, and I'm like, I just don't want to know. I want to stay completely in the dark, do my thing, pretend I'm like like a kid again, just drawing these characters, and like that's it.
Actually, I was going to ask about that, if you do read your own reviews. So you as a policy, you tend not to.
I tend not to. No, every once in a while. My dad reads all of them. He always like, he was, oh, you got a good one. I'm like, I don't want to know. I just don't want to know, because like, yeah, because I feel like they don't help. Because if it's a bad review, it makes you really self-conscious. If it's a good review, you think you're like great, and you've got nowhere else to go. So it's like, to me, it's like either way, it doesn't really help. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that helps is looking at your own stuff and figuring out what you can do better and moving forward.
So I know, you were mentioning this earlier, but again, just for any aspiring creators who might be listening to this, artists in particular, looking to break into the industry, I mean, what general advice would you offer?
Don't give up. I think that's being persistent is like super crucial. Some people get lucky, and the first con they go to, they hit the right person the right day and they can break right in. But most people, it's like an uphill battle to just break in, and then like once you're in, you got to work really hard to stay in. That's definitely the biggest piece of advice, is just be really persistent and to figure out, like, to be smart about it. Like, if you know what your art looks like, to go to companies or people that will be responsive to your style and your look, and to take the advice that you're given as well when they give you feedback, like to not be so arrogant and to be like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm the artist. This is my, you have to be able to take feedback and to roll with people, because like when you're doing something like this for commercial gain, like it doesn't matter what your artistic video, you know what I mean? Like you have to play ball with the people who you're working with, no matter what that is. So just taking advice and being open to taking advice and just working on basic fundamentals of anatomy and perspective, like, and that's the technical thing with the drawing. But yeah, that would be it. The big thing is don't give up.
That is an interesting point, as far as, reconciling maybe your vision as an artist with the
needs
confines,
of the company,
but like the needs of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, because it's true. It's like, okay, well, here's it going with Captain America right now. He doesn't have the wings on his head, right? I like the wings on Captain America's head. But if I work at Marvel, I can't draw the wings on his head. You know what I mean? Because it's like, and it's like, I can't get mad about that either, because it's like that is what they do. It's like if I want to drum with the wings on his head, I can do it. I just won't get paid for it. You know what I mean? So I can do it on my own, you know? So you have to, that was one of the things that art school really hammered into us, was that if you want to do this stuff for a living, you have to bring your own creative energy to it, and you have to bring your own artistic voice and all of that. But you also have to be willing to meet people halfway and to work within like the needs of what your client wants. In this case, DC Comics, like what my bosses want, you know? So.
Right. Well said. No, I think that is really good advice. So, you know, if you're out there and this is something that you want to do, I think that's really something to keep in mind.
I don't know. Like I did the super old school way, the word you just go to con. I know apparently nobody else breaks in that way anymore, from what I'm told. Like it's almost impossible to break in that way anymore. But I just went to cons and just like bugged people until they basically hired me. So
one of your editors on Trinity was Paul Kaminsky, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Do you know Paul?
I do know Paul. Yeah.
Really? Cool.
Not like super well, but he used to shop at least occasionally at Alternate Realities.
Really?
I don't know if he was a full-fledged regular or not, but yeah. And then I certainly knew him when he was at Archie, and I would see him at the Archie booth and stuff. And we've kept in touch a little bit. So yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. No, Paul's great. Paul's awesome to work with. I hope to do a lot more work with him. So, because he was awesome. So.
Well, I really enjoyed, you know, the work that you've done so far, and I'm excited to see everything that comes ahead. I hope you get that exclusive contract. I hope you get that Flash book.
Oh, I hope so, man. From your mouth to God's ears, right? Like,
but thank you so much for being part of this episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, just thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, of course. So, so thank you once again for being a part of this. Thank you to everyone for listening, and as always, just keep punching.